Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for joining today's coffee break webinar, where we're going to be delving into SCOM Managed Instance, which is going to be great fun. It's the most exciting thing to happen in the SCOM space for quite some time. So I'm going to be joined by a guest as normal. So without further ado, let me introduce myself. So I'm Bruce Cullen. I'm the Director of Advanced Products here at Squared Up. I'm also involved in Team Cookdown and thoroughly involved in all things SCOM. And with me today, I have Aakash. Aakash, well, let me just bring you in. You are the SCOM Program Manager at Microsoft. And thank you very much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good, Bruce. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
No problem at all. So there's very little introduction from myself here today. SCOM Managed Instance is clearly the largest thing to happen in the SCOM world for quite some years. I would say, to be honest, since 2012 R2, it's clearly a big deal. And that's kind of reflected in the numbers we're expecting for today's webinar. So rather than me kind of witter on about that, I'm pretty much going to hand over to you. So when you're ready, if you share your screen, and we'll go through the slides and see what it looks like.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm Aakash from Microsoft. I've either reached out or spoken to you in a couple, previous episodes of SCOMathon or Coffee Break, or we may have interacted directly with you and your customer team who have tried SCOM or been working with me in sharing feedback over SCOM. Appreciate your the passion and the interest in SCOM so far, and I'm sure SCOM MI is gonna be what you've hoped for. And in this today's episode, we're going to talk about what SCOM MI is, what value prop it brings, and what does the current preview look like, and a quick gist, or I would say a quick conversation on what the roadmap for SCOM MI looks like, and how do we go ahead and quickly set it up with the demo, right? So this is something that I would want to go ahead and discuss. I'm currently not looking at the comment section, but feel free to put in all the comments and the feedback that you have so far. Right. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump into what is SCOM Managed Instance. SCOM Managed Instance is a cloud-based alternative for SCOM. People who have been using SCOM, it's a replica which is set up in Azure, and they can go ahead and monitor the workloads wherever they're running. Right? And it's a full feature parity with SCOM, where infra and workloads across environments can be monitored. All the management packs that you've had so far, be it third party, first party, and custom management packs, will work as is. And then it's a managed service at the end of the day, which is the biggest win and biggest value prop for SCOM as instance. All the SCOM components that will be created in Azure will be managed by Microsoft. As simple as that. And at the end of the day, there will be seamless migration between SCOM to SCOM MI. Currently, in the preview version, the migration is a bit manual, but still we will bring in some kind of a migration experience by when the product goes GA, right? Where you can go ahead and move all the management packs, all the groups, and the rules and monitors to SCOM MI seamlessly. With that said, let's quickly go ahead and talk to you about what customer pain points are we solving and what is the major value props from SCOM MI. Firstly, the SCOM components, as mentioned, will be created in Azure and Microsoft Managed. This includes the databases, which will get created in SCOM MI. With that said, majority of your resources and time that is spent on maintaining and managing SCOM is reduced, right? It's reduced, and since it is Microsoft managed, it's going to be more of a plug and play where you go ahead and play with the management packs and monitoring ecosystem, right? uh, because SCOM MI, and the second value prop is with regards to the management pack, right? How easy it is to go ahead and migrate as well as reuse the existing management packs, because SCOM MI provides a migration path as well as helps you in preserving your existing SCOM investments on management packs. And lastly, the major value prop that we feel which will enable further use of SCOM MI is the reduced fragmented experiences, right? SCOM MI will provide a consolidated viewing of management experience as well as the monitoring experience. The entire experience will be on Azure portal, and at the end of the day, SCOM MI is a capability of Azure Monitor, right? The product name goes Azure Monitor SCOM Managed Instance, so it is an additional capability that will be that will enhance Azure Monitor at the end of the day. Okay. Having said that, the current preview looks somewhat like this, where the SCOM Managed Instance is hosted in cloud, where and the databases are hosted in SQL Managed Instance. We have a way to go ahead and use the portal UI, and then uh, with the few click of a button, you can create SCOM MI. The average time to create SCOM MI is somewhere between 35 to 45 minutes, and if you want to compare that to, let's say, setting up a SCOM infrastructure in your on-prem, that sometimes takes few hours to few days, right? So that's how it is. And at the end of, and also the existing SCOM managed instance can be connected to operations console and web console, right? The operations console and web console can be set up on any virtual machine hosted in your on-premise or Azure, as long as there is line of sight, right? And let me zoom out. Uh, SCOM MI enables monitoring of workloads which is on and as well as off Azure, and also, as I mentioned, preserves investments in MPs and can be easily set up, right? We'll also talk about what is available in SCOM MI currently. Currently, the reporting layer, which was hosted in SSRS, is now replaced with Power BI. So you can go ahead and use Power BI to fine tune your queries, go ahead and build reports and dashboards. And of course, since you've been working with uh, the SCOM databases all this while, I'm sure you're well versed with the tables and the queries. You can go ahead and use the reporting uh, layer, which is Power BI, and query those databases directly, right, based on what business requirements are to showcase. With SCOM MI, we are also introducing the concept of scaling and patch managing, which is update, where the users can go ahead and scale their SCOM MI servers in and out based on business requirements. We'll talk about all this, or I'll showcase all this in a demo soon. And since SCOM MI is a managed instance, there is no need of users going ahead and manually patching those SCOM servers within Azure, right? With the click of a button, you can go ahead and update SCOM managed instance, and push and make your SCOM managed instance up to date, as well as having those latest features. Right. Those are some of the quick takeaways from in the current preview. Just to just to recap, in the preview you can deploy a SCOM managed instance in Azure using the Azure portal, manager instance from the portal, as well as operations console and web console. Uh, you incur zero DB maintenance because the databases are hosted on SQL MI. You don't need to maintain the hardware or the software around those databases. Validate the monitoring data, right? You can monitor off and on Azure, and then of course you don't need to have those traditional SCOM service accounts. You just need one service account to join, to use the domain joining concept, and one GMSC service account, right? Uh, with that, let's go ahead and talk. Let's go ahead and give you a little bit of details on what is in the underlying infrastructure of SCOM MI. When you create one SCOM, when you create a SCOM managed instance, it is equivalent to a management group, right? The more the same concept which exists in on-premise, which is a management group where you can go ahead and add SCOM management servers. It's the same concept here as well. When you create an instance, you get one management server by default. Again, this is a preview. By GA, we will look into adding two management servers in one instance, which will help in fault tolerance and high availability. This management server is actually hosted with the help of virtual machine scale set and load balanced with Azure Load Balancer, and the data is stored in SQL Managed Instance. Right. Some of the manual actions that you need to do as a user. Once you create a SCOM managed instances, you need to probably install Operations Console and Web Console if you don't have it already, or you can always use the existing consoles to connect to an existing to a newly created MI. You need to install install agents on your virtual machines that you want to monitor, or if you already have those agents from SCOM on-prem, you can multi-home it to SCOM MI, right? And then you need to do a couple of steps to create Power BI reports by a click of a button, right? Along with the reports, we also are tightly integrated with Squared Up. Squared Up has their own reports and plugin built for SCOM MI. As we move towards GA, the setup experience for any kind of reports, be it Power BI or Squared Up, is going to be more seamless, right? And lastly, there is no change in the operations console. Whatever alerts and metrics that you previously saw when you were connecting it to on-prem, you can the same uh, feature sets are available in operations console. Cool. And what are the prerequisites that you need to set up a SCOM as instance? One is from the Azure, from the subnet, or from the VNet that you are going to create the SCOM MI, there should be a line of sight to a on-premise domain controller or a domain controller at the end of the day, right? It could be through express route, VPN, or whatnot. Okay, we need to have a domain account, a single domain account which has permissions to join machine to a domain. We need a single managed identity, Azure managed identity, which will be used to access SQL MI databases. Uh, since we use the Azure Load Balancer, we will also need static IP and FQDN, right? This will be assigned to the load balancer, and FQDN will be kind of a unique URL for that managed instance, right? So that the operations console can talk to it, web console can talk to it, and the agent as well. SQL MI instance, you can either share an existing SQL MI instance or you can create a new one. And lastly, the GMSA and the computer group, which is widely used for any application built on Active Directory domain. Right. Having said that, I would want to go ahead and switch to a demo. Let me see if I can. Bruce, quick check. Still able to see the screen?
Yep, can do.
Yeah, thank you. Before we jump to the domain, if are there any comments that can be looked into, or any feedback that has been shared on the comment section?
There's one question which I'll just pop on screen now from Alex, which is, does SCOM MI support deployment of gateway servers yet?
Yes, I mean the gateway servers is being validated. So ideally, in let's say in a couple of months, or let's say in a month's time, we should have more clarity around the supportability for gateway servers.
Sounds good. Perfect. That's the only question so far. But if anyone else does have any, please do put them in LinkedIn in the comments, and I'll bring them up at the right point.
Sure. Thank you. So let's move on to the demo side of things. Again, as you're seeing, this is the home of Azure portal. You can always go ahead and search for, let's say, SCOM, and the managed instance will come up here. You can also go ahead and click on more services. Again, I'm just trying to show you what are the different entry points that are currently available. You can search for SCOM from here as well, right? SCOM Managed Instance. And as I mentioned earlier, SCOM Managed Instance is a capability under Azure Monitor. So if I navigate to Monitor, which is Azure Monitor, you will see on the left-hand side that as a extension, or I would say as a managed services, we have added Azure Monitor SCOM Managed Instance over here. So let's take this route for now. I'm going to click on this. And when you click on this, this will give you a list of all the SCOM Managed instances that are currently running. I'm going to go through the creation experience in a minute, but this is where you can go ahead and view all the instances. Let me go ahead and navigate to the home of SCOM Managed Instance as well, so that you guys get the real feel of the product. Uh, yeah, so I'm going to click on managed instance over here, and by default it will take me to the home. And at home, as I mentioned, we can click on view instances, which will show me the list of managed instances. These are all the instances which you may create for different purposes, just similar to SCOM management groups, right? You may have groups to manage or to monitor SQL, to monitor prod, to monitor Q&A, whatnot, right? So you can have a similar set of instances created as here as well. Okay. And then now let's go ahead and take a look at create instance. So for the folks who have not yet tried SCOM MI yet and created an instance, we have gone ahead and made sure that there is lesser failures while creating instances. I'm sure people who have tried may have faltered at a couple of places because it's a new product, a lack of experience on it. But then now what we have done is we have added a new step, a new prerequisite step, so that users who are trying SCOM MI and installing SCOM MI for the first time, they understand what are the actual prerequisites required, and if their current set of prerequisites are actually uh, sufficient to create a SCOM MI seamlessly, right? So when I click on create new, this will take me to the prerequisites page, and over here we have the instructions that a user needs to follow. The user needs to go ahead and download the script and check the help option, log in with the domain credentials to a domain joined machine, and then run the script with the specified parameters. So this script needs to be run on a machine which is joined to the domain, and you need to log into the machine with the domain credentials, right? And if the validation fails, take the corrective. The script is actually going to suggest the corrective actions and rerun the script. And once all the validations are successful, you can come back here and click on continue to create, right? So let's go ahead and quickly download the script, which I've already done, and let's see what the current script looks like. So I've just run a get help and use the detailed switch, and this will give me all the parameters that I can pass while for me to validate the inputs. So I have a domain name, DNS server IP, OU path, which is optional, domain username, static IP, DNS, computer group, GMSA. All these are prerequisites which we talked about, right? This is not something new. Let's take an example over here. Example one, where the domain name is domain.com, DNS server IP is this, OU is optional. Again, many users have certain policies where the when a machine is joined to the domain, they pass it on to a specific OU. So we've given that option. Next is domain username, which is used to join the machine to the domain. Static IP is for load balancer. The DNS is for the same, and then the computer group and GMSA account. So this is a sample. So you go ahead and run this, and then you get details of all the uh, you get the validation done, right? So once the validation is done, you and considering it is successful, you click on continue to create. And you when you click on this continue to create, this will take us to the create SCOM Managed Instance homepage, where we input the same exact details, right? uh, I'm just going to take a sample subscription. Just a moment. Good. I'm going to choose a subscription which I've used previously. And once the subscription is created, you can either create a resource group newly from here, or you can use an existing one. I'm going to use an existing one. You can create, uh, I'm going to give a dummy name, coffee break. And currently, SCOM MI instance can be created in a couple of regions, West Europe and West US. We're looking forward to hearing feedback on what are some of the regions that you guys, as users, needed right? We have heard feedback that they need it in East US and East West US too, right? We've also heard feedback that we need it in Canada, right? So we just want to know what are some of the high priority regions that we want to roll out this SCOM MI with. Okay. Uh, then the domain name, again, all this is something which we talked about. So incidentally, there is a bit of a delay today. I don't know if it is because of the screen sharing or is it because of the internet. Bruce, is this pretty quite common when does the
No,
machine
this is
or is
this is new. This is new. As far as I'm seeing it, you sound clear, and I can see what you're doing. There's possibly a lag between what you're doing and it coming out on screen, but
yeah,
it's clear at
yeah.
least.
Okay. So as long as we are able to see the demo, let's
Hmm.
continue. So I'm going to choose the domain account. Again, the domain account is actually stored as key vault, and we store it as a secret in the key vault. Uh, it is more of a security protection that we have added this feature while creating SCOM MI. A user does not need to go ahead and actually type out the password per se, right? So whatever name is provided in secret, the same secret name you provide here, because the the key vault encrypts the data and passes the data directly to the RP, right? The backend tech which takes which takes the inputs and starts deploying SCOM MI. Okay, so secret and secret one. So what I meant to say is you need to create the secret and secret one in the key vault and then reference it here during the creation. Okay. Currently, Azure hybrid benefit will remain no. The concept here is we want to enable existing system center licenses to be reused as Azure hybrid benefit so that folks who have already used SCOM or who are using SCOM, they don't need to procure the license again, right? So that's where the Azure hybrid comes in. So I click on next, and then I key in the network details. The network details, we key in VNet, subnet, the static IP of the load balancer, and the GMSA account. I'm not going to proceed this today because there's a bit of a lag. I don't want to waste my time on this, or I would rather show you the existing features of SCOM MI. And it's pretty straightforward from here. You enter the network details and then the databases, and that's it. You're good to click on review and submit. Once submitted, as I mentioned earlier, the average time to create is about 35 to 40 minutes. I'm sorry, 35 to 45 minutes, right? And you should be able to go ahead and troubleshoot in case you are seeing any kind of errors, right? So we have built-in helpful uh, error messages so that you can know where the failures are and take corrective actions. But in short, if we use this prerequisite script that we talked about, you shouldn't be able to encounter any more errors, ideally, right? But yeah, never say never. We want to hear your feedback if you do encounter error even after running the scripts. Okay, so let's look at an existing instance and see what all the SCOM MI provides so far. So let's take a look at my favorite Contoso. Cool. So once when I enter an existing instance, as I mentioned, this instance is an actual management group. It has one SCOM server running connected to databases stored on SQL MI, and you can go ahead and set up monitoring within this specific instance, right? So let's just trying to see if I can bring it in full view. Okay, so this is a full view of Contoso managed instance. In the overview page, I can go ahead and share feedback. This is something which I always evangelize or at least advertise for end users, because uh, when we when we release the product, the feedback helps a lot in fine tuning the roadmap and make sure that we are heading in the right direction. So I definitely encourage folks to go ahead and share your feedback here by clicking on this button here. On the overview page, you can also go ahead and connect this instance that we have here. You can connect it with Operations Console or with Web Console, right? So when I click on Operations Console, the same kind of pop-up appears on the right-hand side, and you can go ahead and download a new Operations Console, or or what you can do is you can reuse an existing Operations Console and use the DNS name. The DNS name for this one is Contoso LB Aquila.net. Okay. So in my operations console, when I click on connect to management group, I can give this details as the management group name or the management server name. Okay. Again, in the overview page, you see all the basic details which we have fed in during the creation. And let's move on. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Let's move on to SCOM MI infrastructure. Over here, you get to see the underlying infrastructure. As I mentioned, this is hosted using virtual machine scale set, and the name of the scale set is Contoso MI MS. The number of management servers available in this instance is one, and this is hosted in East US. Okay, and of course the subscription name. If you want to look at the current performance of the virtual machine scale set, you can click on monitoring tab, and in the monitoring tab you get to see the performance, the disk usage, the memory, and all of it for the virtual machine scale set, the underlying virtual machine scale set, right? So the virtual machine scale set helps in scaling, helps in patching, the Windows patching especially, and it collates all the data and shows the performance and the disk usage and all of it as one unit, right? Even if there are multiple management servers uh, functioning within the VMSS. Okay, so that's for the infrastructure. Let's move on to scaling, which is one of the most useful feature of SCOM MI. This enables end users to go ahead and add more servers, reduce the existing infrastructure, right? If you compare this with an on-prem, where let's say you have four management servers running, and you want to, let's say, upsize it, you may encounter that there are more endpoints being monitored, so you want to add more. So usually it takes more than let's say a few hours to few days to add a new server. But in this case, this will hardly take about 25 to 40, 25 to 30 minutes to add a new server into this instance. So how do I go about it? So by default, a single management instance with one management server can monitor up to 1,000 endpoints. Right. So that is the recommendation that we're going with based on our testing. So let's say if I want to go ahead and monitor, uh, let's say I want to monitor 1,500 endpoints. Okay. So 1,500 endpoints means I need a minimum of two servers. So it is gonna predict, or sorry, it is gonna recommend that I need to have two servers. So when I click on save, an additional server will be added, which is of this compute template DS3v2. Right? Supposing I'll say no, I don't want two, but I want to go ahead and monitor with four management servers. So I have the flexibility to alter the data and add how many ever servers I want. So when I choose four, that means there is going to be three additional servers with DS3v2 template that will get added. Right? Again, the action will take less than 30 minutes to to add or to scale out, right? Similarly, consider you already have four management servers which is monitoring, let's say, 3500. Okay, 3500 is being monitored with four servers. I don't want to use four. I can always go ahead and reduce and try to test the capacity of those management servers. It is going to throw a warning saying that, hey, two servers are not enough, but I have the flexibility to go ahead and scale in as much as possible. So this is about scaling. Patching is pretty straightforward, and as I mentioned, this is a really high value add for SCOM MI. Imagine, the previous methods in updating SCOM, waiting for update rollups, testing it in QA test, and then rolling it into production. Here it is pretty straightforward. Whenever there is a patch available, there is going to be a banner on top of the instance homepage, which will say, "Hey, there is a new SCOM patch available. Do you want to update it?" And then when you click on yes, you come to this page, and then you can click on update instance, right? So patching operation again takes somewhere between, let's say, 25 to 30 minutes, and during that time the SCOM MI is usable. Okay, so you can there is going to be business continuity, there is going to be reliability, and you can continue using the product. And lastly, keeping in track with the time, is the reporting. As I mentioned, for reporting, we make use of Power BI, and the Power BI talks to the SQL directly, right? So there is, we are kind of democratizing the reporting and the monitoring experience. So me as a SCOM MI admin, I'm going to go ahead and set up the monitoring, all of it, management packs, but I can delegate the reporting to any users, or to the application owners themselves, right? As long as they are able to connect using Power BI, they can go ahead and create reports as easily as possible. Okay, so how do I do it? As I mentioned, there is a bit of prerequisites. Firstly, you need to, the user who's going to configure the dashboard for the first time, they need to have read permission on the SQL MI database. Let's say in example, this is my example, and Bruce is probably one of the application owner. So me, I should have read permissions, not Bruce, right? So once that is configured, once the permissions is added, you click on configure dashboard. This will take us to the powerbi.com, where we have published, where Microsoft has published a Power BI app by the name Microsoft SCOM Managed Instance Reports, right? This can be installed as a standalone as well. You don't need to go specifically into SCOM MI to launch this. You can always go to Power BI, go to App Stores and search for this, right? So when I'm here, I'm going to click on Get It Now, and let's hope I already have this set up. There is a bit of lag. I'm sorry for this.
No worries. While we wait, just to say, at the bottom of that screen you were just on there, where you were looking at the reports information for Power BI, there's also a link down to Squared Up. And it's a very
Yes,
similar process to set up Squared Up. It's exactly the same details you'll need as far as SQL details are concerned. I'll show you all of that in a minute.
sure. Even I'm trying to show. Yeah. So in the Power BI reporting page, we have, the banner over here on the bottom, and this, when I click on this, this will take me to the squared up instructions page, right? Uh, as of now, this is more of a banner, but by GA, we want to make it a little bit more seamless setup experience and reporting experience. I'm sorry for the delay here. Let's say if Power BI also, it's in itself is a bit slow at the very beginning, right? It takes some time to warm up. In the meantime, I will take you to the squared up page.
So on the squared up front, essentially that link will take you through to this blog, which explains the details around what the integration is. There's a bit more that I'll go through in a bit, but essentially there are two kind of distinct flavors of squared up. There's Dashboard Server, which is our kind of historic on-prem SCOM focused product, and then there's our new cloud product, which is what this plugin is for. And I'll show you a demo of what this is and how this works later, but it's all complete SaaS. It will plug into SCOM MI, on-prem data sources and cloud to give you that single pane of glass across all of your tools. But I'll come on to that in a minute.
Thank you. So switching back to the Power BI, again, I've already have this app available. So I either update it, or I can go back to my powerbi.com, and let's say and navigate to the specific app. So I already have it here. I'm going to browse to it. While it is browsing and bringing up the data, there is an additional option which I forgot to mention in the Power BI setup report. One is you can update the app with the latest version if you've come across, or you can install another copy in a different workspace. Okay. So with that said, let's switch to the Power BI dashboard. Again, in this dashboard, at the very beginning, you will see a lot of dummy data. In order to go ahead and set up the actual or see the actual data from SCOM MI, you need to probably run a couple of things here, or go ahead and enter a couple of information over here, which I will visit in a minute. But before that, Power BI, as I mentioned earlier, there is a template which Microsoft has published, and in that template there are three to four reports which are built in, which will give an idea of alerts, management packs, SCOM health, and monitors by management packs. Right. So all these are available by default. That that doesn't mean you user has to stick to only these management packs, so sorry, these reports. You can always go ahead and edit and add your own custom dashboards and talk to the SQL databases hosted on SQL MI, right? SCOM databases hosted on SQL MI. So a user, although installs this, they can always edit it and add more pages and dashboards onto Power BI, right? So at the end of the day, we are giving the flexibility to the end users to go ahead and build their own dashboards and reports. Okay, cool. With that said, I'm sorry. Let's go back to the couple of steps which I talked about in Power BI configuration. I don't know them. I am clicking on few things. It's a bit slow though. Yeah. So over here, when you're on this page, the home page, you need to click on connect your data. The warning symbol that you see, since all the data that you're having is dummy data, you need to actually authenticate and authorize the data extract. So this data warehouse name and URL, we already saw this in our Power BI homepage, or sorry, the SCOM MI homepage in the Power BI section. So just a moment. Yeah. So you see this data, DB name and DB host URL. So you need to enter the same exact data in the Power BI page. And once you go ahead and enter the data, you need to authenticate. And this is where I was talking about, who needs to have access to uh, to the databases, right? So when I click on next, I hope it doesn't do a lot of checking on the URL. No, it didn't. Oh, it did. Not supported. Just a moment. I'm going to copy. Again, since I'm facing a bit of a lag, trying to skip as many steps as possible. Okay. So when we go past the URL, it is going to ask us what type of authentication do you want to use. Do you want to use OAuth, or do you want to use SQL authentication? In my case, since I've been added, my account, Akash B, has been added as a SQL read permission. I don't need to re-enter my credentials. I can use OAuth and sign in and connect. So once I sign in and connect, the data will be refreshed and we will see the actuals. Okay. Now let's say if I want some other users, application owners such as Bruce, to view this data, I can always share this report. So ideally, when Bruce browses to powerbi.com and browses to this dashboard, he can refresh and view the data. They don't need to necessarily have access to the SQL DB to access the data. Right. So that is a quick intro to SCOM MI. All of this is actually available on resources page. Bruce will be sharing this slide out with the audience, hopefully. And the same intro, the same concept has been presented as part of videos. And I would definitely encourage folks to go ahead and try the product and share your feedback. And I can take few questions and probably give you a little bit of information around the GA side of SCOM MI. But before that, Bruce, you want to take over and talk about the squared up dashboards?
Absolutely. Well, firstly, thank you for showing us what you've shown us, Aakash. Always good to see what's coming and how things look today. So I'll just talk you through a little bit about Squared Up, because we've obviously built a plugin for SCOM MI. As I was saying earlier, this is for the cloud variant of Squared Up rather than the on-prem variant of Squared Up, which is new. You'll be familiar with the on-prem variant. The cloud version is pure SaaS and can plug into wherever your data lives, so not just SCOM. And you'll see from the list of logos here, we're talking about a sort of mix of on-prem and cloud data sources. We have over 50 plugins in this product. So very powerful and will accommodate for most of your needs. But if not, we're very keen to hear from you. Right now, for example, I'm digging into the Prometheus plugin, which exists today, with a round of improvements. And so if there are things you're interested in seeing in that area, please do reach out to me, DM me on LinkedIn. So Squared Up Cloud uses the concept of a data mesh, which is quite important because it means that rather than data laking all of the data, which is the standard approach for these things, we're pulling it directly from where the data is stored. In the case of the SCOM MI plugin, that is obviously SCOM MI, which means that we can provide you with real-time insights. And our database, unlike with the data lake, is a knowledge graph, which means that what we're really storing is essentially metadata and objects and the relationships between them, and of course the plugins. And why? Well, obviously we show you awesome dashboard insights on top. So I'm going to give you a really quick demo of this, but I'm kind of cheating. I pre-recorded my demo because I'm in the office today, so I haven't got access to all of my usual screens. So I'm going to show a really quick video of how this works. So here we go.
So I'm going to show you how you connect to SCOM MI. So we're in the Azure portal and we're looking at a SCOM MI instance right now. These are the sorts of bits of information you get about it. If you click on under reports, the Power BI tab, you'll see a couple of things here. We've got the database name and the database host URL. You'll need these to connect to the SCOM Data Warehouse database. So we're going to just copy them to the clipboard, essentially. Ready? So let's do that now.
Hey Bruce, I'm not sure if the video is
at the
running.
bottom of the screen you have
Is
a
it?
squared up
Or is it
URL which
only
you can
me
click,
who's
which will take you through to the product itself. Then in the product we're going to click add plugin and we're going to search for the SCOM MI plugin. There it is. So here we're going to input database name, database URL, along with port number from the portal. Then username and password. These are what you'd use to access the data warehouse for SCOM MI. So there must be sufficiently permissions, must be sufficiently granted. Then when we hit save, we're going to connect to SCOM MI and we're going to pull a bunch of objects, essentially. We're just essentially indexing them and providing relationships between them. So we hit save now. So I actually cancelled because I have one in true demo style already set up. So this is my plugin I had set up. You can see it's synced 32 minutes ago. So it has all of the metadata and relationships already. Think of this essentially, this data mesh concept as a large primary key database. So now we're going to go to the workspace that was created that contains dashboards from SCOM MI. So here we go. You can see we've got alerts by priority, alerts by severity, alerts raised by hour on this view here. And let's just give it a bit more data. Change the time frame up here from 24 hours to 30 days. There we go. A bit more data to see, so it's a bit more interesting to look at. But you get the idea. This is an out-of-the-box dashboard from the plugin. But we're going to actually go and create a dashboard now to put in some performance bits and pieces as well as alerts. So we're going to hit add. We'll give the dashboard a name. Let's call this health service. Health service. And then we'll hit configure on our first tile on this dashboard. Select SCOM Managed Instance from the left-hand side from scope. And you're shown all of the data streams that exist for this plugin. So these are all of the kind of out-of-the-box or customizable ways of pulling data from SCOM MI. It's the same idea for any plugin in Squared Up Cloud. And we're going to have a look at alerts. This one here is a customizable one. So we're going to hit on this, and we're going to select the class that we want to pull alerts for. So this is obviously being pulled from your SCOM MI instance. So we're going to search in here for health service, which we're going to select. Let's give this a name as well. Let's call this alerts, and hit save. And we're going to pull essentially alerts for the health service. No data to show. So the time frame I've got set is 24 hours. Let's pick a longer time frame. It's very likely there aren't alerts in the last 24 hours. This is a demo lab after all. Let's have a look at the raw data. There is an alert here. Here we go. So there we are. Alerts. Let's hit save on that tile now. And let's resize it to make it a bit smaller. Then we'll add a new tile in here by hitting on the plus arrow. And then we're going to hit configure on the second tile. Again, we select our SCOM MI scope. And this time we are going to go to object states here, which will show the state of the object from SCOM. And again, we're going to pick the class we want to select state from. And again, we're going to pick on our health service. This is a demo lab after all. Unfortunately, I haven't got loads of data in here, but it's exactly the same premise for anything you want to point this at. We'll give it a name of state and hit save. And what you should see is the state of my objects. Next, we're going to create a tile for performance. So again, same sort of process to get going. We're going to click on SCOM Managed Instance, and we're going to go to performance metrics here at the bottom. And again, we pick our class, our health service class. Health service, there it is. And then we're asked to pick a performance rule. Again, this is pulled back from your SCOM MI instance. So these are my options essentially. Let's see which one shall we pick. Let's have processor utilization. There we go. And we'll give this a sensible name. Processor utilization. And then we hit save. And what we should see is a line graph. Yes, bingo. Which shows me from all the various hosts, there are only 2 in my demo lab, their CPU line. So there you go. It's quite easy to create. Let's resize that, make that a bit bigger. Really easy to create tiles from SCOM MI. So you can obviously create tiles to pull data from other objects from SCOM. This is a demo lab, so I haven't got it hooked up to a whole bunch of stuff. And the real value in doing this is you can layer data from SCOM MI alongside all your other tools. If I go to plugins now, you'll see the examples of the kinds of plugins available. There are absolutely loads that cover most of sort of the common use cases. So we've got databases in here, plenty of other monitoring tools, project management tools like Jira, obviously on-prem SCOM as well, SolarWinds is in there. You get the idea. ServiceNow for your incidents, which is the real value of layering data from all of your systems with SCOM MI in the mix.
There you go. Perfect. So you get a flavor for what's kind of possible there when you use SCOM MI with Squared Up. So here we're looking at the resources that Aakash showed earlier. As you said earlier, Aakash, we will share those out afterwards. There's some great questions coming in. Just to say, please do keep those coming in. There's just a little bit more to get through first, and then we're going to get there. So before we get to Q&A, just a quick word from our sponsors. Obviously, you've heard about Squared Up already. So the sponsor of today's event is Cookdown, and their primary product is Connection Center, which is all about connecting SCOM to wherever you have the rest of your tooling. So we can push your existing SCOM alerts into ITSM tools like ServiceNow or Sharewell, and of course, messaging tools like Slack and Teams, but ultimately anywhere you like with webhooks. Also, we can not just push alerts, but also pull alerts into SCOM from any platform that you can think of that supports webhook to make SCOM the center of your monitoring universe. Also, we'll work with SCOM MI. It's a management pack, and as Aakash said, management packs are fully supported. It's part of the awesome thing about SCOM MI. Everything you need is at cookdown.com, where you can take a free trial, get a demo, and ask us any questions. Final thing to say is we're running still the Big SCOM survey. The Big SCOM survey is where we're looking for you to tell us about your plans for SCOM for today and how your use of SCOM might change over time. If you go to scomathon.com/survey, it's very short, I promise, and we'll share all the insights as we do every year on what's going on in the world of SCOM. So without further ado, let's take it over to Q&A. So there's some really good questions coming in, Aakash. So I'm going to start to pop them up on screen. So the first one is also from Alex, who had a question earlier. For the SCOM data warehouse, should SCOM admins need to still set the data retention, or would this be solely managed by Microsoft? Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question, Alex. Again, the reason data retention was usually set in the on-prem world was to maintain the performance or to prevent any kind of performance degrade on the SQL. But over here in SCOM MI, the performance and of course the overall maintenance of those databases is managed by Microsoft because it's a PaaS service, the SQL MI, right? However, the data retention is more of a compliance thing. It is more driven by business requirement. If your company says, "Hey, I don't want data for more than 6 months," then you can probably, purge the data for which is older than 6 months. So data retention in SCOM MI would be more on business requirement and compliance rather than performance oriented.
Makes sense. Thank you. Next question is from an anonymous LinkedIn user. Is there a cost for the preview instance? Any links to planned cost?
This is a great question. I'm sorry, I forgot to cover this during the presentation. There is absolutely no cost for preview usage. The only cost for preview usage will be the compute. All the resources which will be created underlying underneath the instance, which is management server, virtual machine scale set, what else? The Azure load balancer, sorry. Those will be charged the compute charges for those will be costed to the subscription.
Makes sense. There's a similar related question here from Alex. How will SCOM MI be licensed as part of bring your own enterprise agreements, or will this be included in the Azure costs? You've touched on this.
This is a very common question, and I have a very common answer for this for now. So for preview, no license, no charge. It's the compute. But for GA, we will come back to you and inform or publish the charges for SCOM MI. The overall concept is, as I mentioned, we do not want existing SCOM customers to pay twice for the same experience or for the same tool. We want them to go ahead and leverage their existing System Center licenses and probably convert them to Azure Hybrid Benefits. The details will be available by GA.
Sounds good. All right, next question. I see both Power BI and Squared Up plugin redirects to the browser. Is it possible to open and see reports in the portal itself?
Redirecting to browser. Again, when you say portal, if you mean Azure portal, unfortunately, no. Again, Power BI and Squared Up, these are pure dashboarding tools created for different personas, not as a management tool per se, and hence they are not available on the Azure portal itself. But I have few thoughts which I want to talk to you about the reporting in the roadmap, which is the next question.
Sounds good. It very much is the next question. Can't skip the roadmap question, I'm afraid, Aakash. Here we go. What's the roadmap is essentially the question.
Yeah. So I missed adding the roadmap slide to the presentation. Apologies. The roadmap for GA would be focused more on increasing the value prop, which is already part of a preview, which is the seamless migration. As I mentioned, we want to go ahead and provide a migration experience which will help users migrate their management packs into SCOM MI, along with the groups and whatever rules and monitors that are there. Migration experience is one. The other one is visualization, and the seamless or non-fragmented experience, which was highlighted in our in the slide as well. What I mean to say that is a SCOM MI user who was who's actually using the product in Azure portal as a capability of Azure Monitor should be able to go ahead and see alerts, should be able to act on reports, act on dashboards, or create dashboards directly in Azure portal, right? And some of the ways to go about is either Azure Workbooks or Azure Managed Grafana, right? These are some things that we are looking at GA, and tighter integration with Azure Monitor, right? What can a user do when there is an alert created, integrated with Azure DevOps, or act on those alerts on the portal itself. These are some of the things that we want to go ahead and deliver by GA, along with, of course, SCOM Managed Instance being an Azure service. It should be reliable, it should have high quality stability, and should meet all SLAs and SLOs.
Yeah, sounds good to me. And on the Squared Up side, we're looking at a tighter integration, as you said earlier, Aakash. So to make it less, sort of more integrated, essentially, we're looking at sort of Azure Marketplace as a possibility. But again, details will follow when we figure them out. And then the final question so far is, what's the estimated date for GA? I knew this one would come up.
Yes, I do not have any timelines for that. We are looking somewhere, probably later this year, maybe mid 23 or later than 23. I do not have any timelines that I can commit to.
That's okay. Expected answer. So those are all the questions. So I'm going to give it a moment and see if there are any other questions to come in. And if not, all that's really left to do is to say thank you, Aakash. Thank you for joining me again and for showing off SCOM MI. It's looking great. As I said at the beginning, it's the biggest thing to happen for SCOM for quite some time. I really mean that. I'm really excited to see what comes next and what that roadmap looks like. Any opportunity to share any of the roadmap in the future will be greatly received by our audience. So we'll get you back for another one when we can share more. So let's see if there are any final questions. And if not, thank you very much, everyone, for joining today. Oh, it's not a question. Here we go. What about GA for SCOM 2025? It is a question, but it's not about SCOM MI.
Yeah, I mean, the year says the GA timeline, right? So 2025 SCOM in 2025, simple as that.
Yeah. Good news is we've got a few years for you to worry about that yet. All right. Yeah. Thank you very much once more again for joining us, Aakash, and to all of you for watching. This has been great. Thank you very much. Until next time.
Everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great day.
Goodbye.